you ever wondered, can you communicate directly with spirit guides, teachers, or non-physical consciousness, or even our higher selves? What would they tell us? My name is Kevin Moore, and since 2015, I started to practice a form of communication which is termed channeling. I have been interviewing experts on my talk show to find out, does life continue after we die, and can we communicate with those that have crossed over? With each expert I spoke to, they all had different ideas. Is there knowledge from the past which could be shared with the present moment? So I thought, why not just speak to the non-physical world directly through channelers around the world? And that's what I set out to do. They Call Us Channelers will take the viewers on a journey into the phenomena known as channeling. And my main goal with this docuseries is to bring a new understanding and awareness to channeling by looking within ourselves and asking, is it truly possible that we can all use this innate ability? And Karl Molliston, thank you so much for joining me.
Well, you're most welcome. I'm pleased to give what I can for this exercise, and hopefully will be useful for you and others listening. So
I think so for sure. And we're just in Chicago right now. I've interviewed you previously on my talk show, and we'll put the link below of the previous interview. And it's like I say to a few people on this journey, I never really thought, you know, when I first interviewed these people, that I'd be sat with them like this. So what is that, right? Is that meant, do you think things are destined to be?
Well, I think it's persistence, it's passion, it's commitment, and dedication.
Yeah.
You're making this happen because you feel it's important. And so it's a testament to your diligence and your thoroughness and the dedication to the quest, I guess, for knowledge, for information, understanding. I get that because that's the kind of person I am. I'm very curiosity driven, and I'm passionate about what I do, and I always want to learn. I want to know more and understand more.
How long have you been doing what you're doing?
Well, it's only been about 10 years or so. I got started late in life with an awakening, and wasn't much of a believer, although I was raised in a religious home. And, you know, I was seduced by science. And I figured science has the answers, and and that was the big focus of most of my life as a scientist, and wanting to help medicine with new medicinal substances. And so I worked in research to do that, and retired from that career coinciding with a spiritual awakening. And I had seen the limitations of that approach all along, and wasn't really thinking about a bigger picture. I always thought, well, we're just not doing it right yet. We just have to get more sophisticated and delve deeper, and maybe need some new scientific tools to probe things better, and stretch our brains more to fit all the pieces together. And so when I retired, because I was still interested in human well-being, and I'd always had an interest in the mind and the levels of the mind, the subconscious realm, the phenomenon of hypnosis, and the paranormal. And I was actually at a channeling event and went to lunch with someone who was a hypnotist and was kind of voicing those ideas and the curiosity I had about it. And he invited me to come and hang out with him and his friends. And next thing I knew, I was taking training as a hypnotist and did hypnotherapy for people, helping them with emotional issues, emotional problems primarily, because that was my interest. And of course, it wasn't too long before I bumped into the application for doing past life regressions and slowly became convinced it was real. It's not what people think, that everyone believes they're Cleopatra or some king or something. People have past life recollections of being farmers and factory workers, things like that, peasants, servants, most typically.
What was your awakening experience then?
It was an inner stirring, an inner yearning to start looking beyond what I'd been doing. And I had a very strong feeling about that. I'm not done. I'm just starting. And it was startling to me because I thought I was done. I figured I'll retire, I'll just hang out, I'll play some golf and, relax and catch up on reading. And I mean, there's many things that I would like to do and I haven't done because I've been very driven always in my work. But I see now, looking back, it was all preparation. It was all leading me to explore and do more. So I just continued on. I just did it in a different way. I was still a researcher. I was probing to learn, to understand. And as I worked with people and explored their issues and saw the power of going into the subconscious to help them sort things out and resolve problems, it was eye-opening and it was an awakening for me. And I began to wonder, why is it that most of the official card-carrying healthcare providers aren't doing this? And that turns out to be a long story and a kind of a tortured one, because there's a lot of problems in the world right now. So as I progressed in learning more about the mind, using hypnosis as a tool, exploring some of the paranormal phenomena, and being interested in extrasensory perception, which I always believed was a real phenomenon. I didn't think I had it, but I saw it elsewhere, and when I was with people, things would happen, and I thought it was them, but probing into that, more and more I convinced myself of its reality. And that opened up a whole new panorama for me, culminating in being able to do channeling and then go and get specific information and detailed knowledge about things.
So as a scientist, you had what was your views on these type of subjects, metaphysical growth, spiritual growth? I mean, they're kind of the same thing, but did you just, think it was all woo-woo?
Well, yes, I thought it was wishful thinking. I thought it was, misguided tagging onto folklore and superstition and old rituals and so on that were really groundless. And I knew the mind had power, and I knew really that's what it's about for us as beings. It's not about using the rest of our being so much, other than for sports and things like that, useful work. But it's more about the mind, more about understanding oneself and learning from interacting with others. And now I see the whole purpose as learning how to give and express love and receive it. That is the art of living. Having a more spiritual focus, which is really focusing on love. That's the whole essence of spirit as I have come to understand it. And this is the part that's missing in so much of life, in the way people comport themselves, the things they believe in or don't believe in. When it's all materialistic, it's hollow, it's empty. Technology is a useful tool, but it is a false god in many ways, because it ties people up into the trivial, and they begin to lose their own being and their own experience. They're just eyeballs looking at a screen. And it's a kind of an empty exercise, because it doesn't grow the person in a meaningful way. And it doesn't give them an exercise opportunity to give and receive love in a useful fashion. So seeing the plight of so many people who are cut off from love, who don't love themselves, this is a huge problem, a huge dilemma. It was a shock to me to learn that there are dark forces working against us. I had a colleague in the hypnosis community who did remote spirit releasement work with his wife, and he'd done this for 20 years. She was an intuitive, a medium, and as a hypnotist, he would hypnotize her, and she would tune in to a client wherever they were. They didn't have to be present in the room, and would channel dark spirits within that person. And then he, as the hypnotist and the interrogator, as she channeled the voice of this spirit, would persuade it to go to the light. That's how they did the process, basically. And I'd heard him talk about this for years. And finally, because his wife had passed away, he decided he's going to teach this to some others and see if he can get some other people to do it. And so I went to this training. I had no particular expectations. I was curious, and I've done a lot of trainings like that, to see personally, is there something to this? Is there something for me that I can latch onto? But I need always first to be convinced it's real. So I went. And to my shock, when I would tune into people just using my mind, eyes closed, in a kind of hypnotic state, I could scan them and see presences within them, a spirit attachment. And I could channel it and speak its words. This was an amazing eye-opening for me. And right from that point on, I did a lot of that kind of work, and I found it was extremely common. And at first I thought, well, I'm just kind of attracting people who have this weird issue, and it's probably relatively rare. And then I found that's not so. It's 90% of people have these kinds of attachments. So there's a huge cohort of dark spirits out there, and they go after everyone. And now that I do channeling, I've learned much more about the phenomena and the ins and outs, how they operate. So it's very interesting because this is usually below the radar. The people who are more sensitive to their energies might tune into them, and then they might hear a voice talking in their head. These are the people they can tip into madness oftentimes because they're more fragile. They have looser boundaries, and they're more easily manipulated and tormented and terrorized by having these sorts of influences going on. Most of the time, people have no idea it's in there, but they can manipulate certain things in the body. They work at it, and they can send lots of negative information into the very deepest level of the mind. There's a part of the subconscious that cannot be reached even with hypnosis. People are disconnected from this region of the consciousness. And it's the part of the mind that has more intuitive ability and can also connect to the Akashic records and look at the deep past. And it does this. So anything in the life that happens, this part of the mind wants to know more. What do we know about this? And it'll look at all the past experiences, and it'll find things where the person got in trouble in some way, or was hurt, or were killed. And we'll try to warn the conscious level about it through emotion. So this is the engine for generating a lot of inner discord. It's this worry wart way down below, way down deep. But it is disconnected. It can't send a text message. And that part can be influenced directly by spirit attachments on board the person. So what you have now is you've got a gang of dark spirits in you, because usually there's a group. They are energy vampires. They want to draw energy from us. That's their primary motivation. And so they attach to the chakras, which are the energy centers, and drain energy away for themselves. So that's why there's a group there. And they do this constant badgering of their host, tormenting them, scaring them. They see the Akashic records of the person too. They'll bring up things in the past. They'll suggest, oh, it's coming again. Or they'll talk down the person and what they do and what they think and criticize them. So it's like the trash talk that professional sports players do to one another. You know, someone is up, and they're ready to be at bat, and they're getting the trash talk from the infield, and they're telling them they're rotten, they're not going to do it, and go back home, and this is what the spirits do. So it's a major source of anxiety for people, and disquiet and inner conflict. And they keep this up all life long. They get in people from the get-go if they can. Babies are wide open energetically. They have no ability to defend themselves. So it starts early. 50% of the time, I am told from channeled sources that when babies are crying for no reason, they're being tormented by dark spirits. This is ghastly, but it's a huge problem. There is an answer, because you can ask the divine realm for assistance with this. These spirits can't just be ordered out. They're malevolent. They're working against humans, working against love and light anyway. It's a sport for them. But the divine realm will come and help you with this, but you have to ask. So the things I've learned in dealing with the divine realm are, we're on our own here. This is free will, free agency. It's up to us to do everything. We are supported. We get a life force energy from the divine that comes into us. That's what keeps us living and breathing and the heart beating. It's this life force energy. And it comes from Creator. It comes from the Almighty. I use the word Creator because it's a little more generic. The people in the spiritual community these days don't like the word God. They think that's old hat and old-fashioned, and they feel they've kind of moved beyond that. And I don't want to lose them in the discussion if they think I'm just someone who's a religious fundamentalist or something. I'm trying to bring God back into everything and get everybody worshiping and reading the Bible and so on. And it's not what I'm about. I want to move beyond that as well. This is all about growth and expansion, and that's what Creator wants, because now I talk with Creator directly. So I have a better feel for what Creator's plan is and His intentions and His hopes for us. But we have to make our lives work. We can ask for help though, but we must ask in order to get it. So if you need help with something going on that's wrong in your life, that's what prayer is designed to do. But it needs to be done from a position of some strength, where you feel like you have standing. You're not a supplicant. You're not unworthy. You're not little and needing to beg. That disempowers you. And in fact, many prayers have built-in disempowerment. And then the divine has to stand aside, even though you're praying for something. And if you look at the wording of prayers very carefully, you'll often see this. So if you ask, you can be helped with this sort of issue. So once I started removing spirits from people with divine help, I realized, well, what about the health arena? What about health problems, physical health, and emotional health issues? And bit by bit, I explored ways to help a person across the spectrum. And I now have a very advanced protocol for doing healing work that takes care of all these issues, removing entities, dealing with extraterrestrial interferences, energetic problems, balancing the energy systems, the chakras, and doing karmic repair for issues in other lifetimes, which is a big source of difficulty. And it was very surprising for me to learn about this because, of course, being a scientist and looking at things from a traditional perspective, the idea that most illness, most physical illness, comes from karma, often past lifetime karma, is a huge leap. And of course, the mainstream has no clue about this. But karma drives discord in the body. It's patterns from the past being reawakened and playing out in the physical. It can come through genes having been altered, but it can also be a kind of energy and a reconnection to ways of thinking that the person fell into in a past lifetime. So if you look at people intuitively as family units, for instance, it's frequently the fact that people are back in the same family group and they fall into similar patterns. An abusive parent will be an abusive parent again. That's the tendency, at least. The kids will be victims again. You know, it's a pattern. Sometimes they do better, and that brings healing, and that's the whole reason for doing this. People choose to come down and be with who they are.
But if a soul is choosing to have the next life, for example, then they must be fully aware that these attachments could be a byproduct of that life.
Well, they are an influence. It was described to me first by the divine realm as the wild card. It's not usually planned for, but it's a road hazard. So when you come down into this sphere of life as a physical being, you're an extension of your soul. You're coming down with a plan. There are a number of things that are orchestrated to help that. Your choice of who to be with is all decided in advance, and for reasons, for a plan, a purpose. When spirits come into the picture, that can derail things. It's not planned to happen usually, but it can cause a major disruption. And it does. It derails many lifetimes.
With the patterns that come with those attachments, you mean? So patterns of addiction, patterns of abuse, not showing much self-love to yourself, maybe, whatever it may be, there's whatever sort of issues it's causing. What are these negative attachments? Where are they from?
Well, the darkest are actually angelic. They're a cohort of angels that are normally in a higher energy state. That's why we don't see them. Their vibration is quite different than a physical being. They are a group that turned away from love and light eons ago. And this is described in the Bible. These are the fallen angels. And they have gone down this downward spiral for so long now, they are completely cut off. They cannot survive any longer unless they get energy from living beings. They will perish without it. So they have a desperate need to prey on people. And they have become quite savage, quite negative. And their whole focus is trying to poke us and prod us and torment us to get energy. And they cause lots of trouble, lots of interpersonal strife, a lot of the bad blood between individuals is orchestrated by their spirit attachments. They're a problem in the workplace with gossip, backbiting, backstabbing. They stir that kind of thing up. And they'll tip people into crossing certain moral boundaries. Whenever there is incest, it's instrumented and orchestrated by these dark spirits, pushing someone beyond what they normally would do. Most people would contain themselves if this wasn't a factor. So this is why it's a wild card. It sort of amplifies the negative.
So this is obviously a big part of the work that you do.
Yes.
Yes. And when you channel as well, you're not just able to channel Source or Prime Creator. You channel other people's higher selves, deceased people that have crossed over already. I mean, you're not just the one, so, you're not just Source, are you, or
Yes, that's
Creator?
right. Yes, I do all of those things because they all have value, and one can learn a great deal talking to light beings. And the higher self, it turns out, is a tremendous resource for assistance. We know it as our conscience, and that's when people are more aware of it, when they have that qualm about doing something they know isn't right, and they have this kind of uncomfortable feeling. That's the higher self saying, ooh, look out, look out, buddy, you sure you want to do that? It doesn't control you, it sends you a suggestion to consider. That's how the divine realm works. It's always subtle, it's always giving you offerings, but not leading you to do things. And the higher self is the regulator of the life force energy. It can be protecting the person, it can be healing the person, it can be giving guidance. It's the direct pipeline for guidance from above. And it is also a member of the divine realm. So it has lots of constraints. It can't take the lead, it can't direct you. It can suggest, it can encourage, it can give you a little nudge here and there, but it can't control things. It can save you at times. If you're driving and you're not paying attention and you're fiddling with something, it can make you snap back to look at the road again just in time because someone's coming in your path, if it's not your time to leave. Other than that, it has to stand around and watch you, make your mistakes, suffer in many cases. You can ask the higher self for help, for support, for guidance, for healing, and for protection, and get a greater assistance, just as you can with Creator. But you do have to ask formally, and you also have to have some belief. A naive person who is a non-believer in the things we're talking about here won't get assistance from the divine realm that way because they have blocked it already. They've already decided, well, that's not real, that's bogus. And so if they were motivated to say a prayer for some reason, it's likely that prayer would not be acted on because they've already made this decree. That's the power we have.
What is channeling to you?
Channeling is a gateway for information, for knowledge, for communication, to a realm that otherwise is unavailable. You can't talk directly to people in the light and get an answer without doing some sort of an intuitive outreach, just with the conscious self and the normal senses. The energy plane is so different, there cannot be an interplay. But intuitively one can do the outreach. So beyond the intuitive sensing and awareness and getting bits of knowledge, the channeling is a more direct communication where you can have potentially an actual conversation with a being. And so you get greater clarity.
Is it true that you said that you were told by, Creator, that's what you channel, yeah?
I call it Source Creator typically,
Creator.
but you can call it Prime Creator, you can call it God, the Almighty, Allah,
Oh, let's call it. Okay,
Yeah,
let me.
I don't use the religious terms just
Yeah.
because I want to be more
No, that's a good way to put it, actually.
non-objectionable to
Sure.
those who hold those terms dear and don't like it when they hear the other flavor. You know?
Well, let's include them in the question then. So you channel Prime Source, God, Creator, Allah, whatever personification you want to give it, and has it explained to you that only, is it 99.9% of people that are channeling are not actually channeling what they think they're channeling?
Well, good for you for asking the question. I'm not sure you'll like the answer, but I don't like the answer either. So that's my preface. This is a hard-won lesson for me. When I had my spiritual awakening, it was in the midst of looking at what other people were doing who were on that path. And so there is this spiritual community, the New Age kind of force, New Age perspective about things. And it has many branches and flavors. That's not necessarily the best term for it, but as opposed to religious, formal religion and so on. So I would visit gatherings. I would look and see what other people were doing, the meditation groups and the channelers and so on. And it all made sense to me. It all sounded wonderful. They're talking about enlightenment and talking about ascension, the expansion of the reach of human, and we're going to become more exalted beings and have greater capability. We're going to move into higher dimensions and have so many more capabilities. What's not to like? It sounds great. And no worries, because we can make things happen. We can manifest what we need. We just have to figure out how to do it effectively. And then we can really provide for ourselves, take care of everything. And when I started looking at that in detail, little alarm bells started to go off. For one thing, my training in trauma resolution work showed the value of going into the subconscious and helping people connect to past experiences, past watershed events that were trauma. That is a key to doing a lot of healing. And in talking to some of these channelers, they would say, well, don't look back. Don't look at the past. That's a distraction. Don't focus on the negative. Focus on the positive. Focus on what you want, not what you don't want. Point your canoe downstream, not upstream. These sort of metaphors and so on. And I knew there's something wrong here. And as I did further channeling work with the divine realm, this is when I learned this information. Most channelers are being duped. They're being deceived. What happens is all these beings are out there, dark spirits and extraterrestrial psychics. They're monitoring our world. They're controlling our world, in fact. So they're working from behind the scenes. They are the ones driving the deep state, the Illuminati, the cabal, secret government, whatever you want to call it. People have a sense there's something like this happening. It's covert, it's done from behind the scenes. But you will be noticed. If you reach out intuitively, it's sending a beacon up. They'll see you and they'll come and say hello. Because they want to do a handshake with you and get you into their fold. And this is what they've done with the channelers. They create relationships. They'll come again and again with similar information or adding new knowledge, whatever the person wants. They're quite clever about this. They're very adept. They've been doing this for thousands of years. They know all of our cultures. They know our languages. They know our folklore. They know our religions. And they know our yearnings. They know how we tick. They know how we think. And they can bring you all kinds of uplifting spiritual messages all day long that sound wonderful. Some are very flowery and elegant. breathtaking in their beauty. They're good poetry, but they're not necessarily divine. This is the problem. So I don't like being the messenger here. I really don't. Because this is dreadful. What this means is there's a huge sector of people with talent, intuitive reach, intuitive capability, who are being misled, misdirected into make work, bringing more sweetness and light discussions and so on, which doesn't solve real problems. It's not going to help someone with a physical disability, with a serious chronic illness, with a mental illness or mental imbalance. It just doesn't do the job to give them mantras or things to encourage them. There's nothing wrong with it. It's fine as far as it goes. Having the right mindset is quite important, but it can't stop there. You've got to do some action to make things happen. And if you have trouble, if you have problems, you need to find the source and fix it. So here's the difference. When I learned about how the divine realm heals, what I was told is it's very much like a physician. They want to know where it comes from if you have a physical condition. So your doctor doesn't visualize you as a healthy person running in a field with puppies and butterflies and so on. The doctor will question you about what you've gone through in your life. What have you done? What's been your diet? Do you exercise? What's your family history? All these things. And where were you? And what did you have wrong with you when you're little? And all of which can be predisposing sources of negativity that create a problem. And this is what the divine realm does. They look at where you've been, what you've done, what's influencing you, even across multiple lifetimes. And they'll trace it to all the different origins. And that's the key to profound healing. So now in my Lightworker healing protocol, there's some very advanced healing techniques, doing soul matrix healing that incorporates the influences of the self, because we're the biggest source of negativity, beating up on ourselves, and then across all the lifetimes, past, present, and future, and then moving beyond that to the family group, and then it would include all family groups and the whole of the soul collective we've interacted with. The bullying teachers, the kids who tormented us when we were little, and crazy relatives we never got along with, and on and on and on. Bosses who took advantage of us, and these sort of things. And then the perpetrators, the major ones, dark spirits, extraterrestrials in some cases as well, and evil people, criminal level interventions and disturbances. And then the archetypes to finish this up. The soul collective, the ancestral beliefs, the cultural beliefs, and the Akashic records and the collective unconscious.
So you're saying the ETs are working with the negative forces, or the ETs are unaware of the negative forces?
All right, here's the big picture. It's actually very interesting, and it actually makes sense. Not everyone will believe it. Most people don't believe in ETs, but that's a suppression and a subjugation to keep them, to block their minds, in spite of the fact there are 70,000 UFO sightings every year. Abduction stories keep mounting, but they don't get reported typically. So in any event, what has happened? This falling out in heaven, if you will, of these dark angelic beings first preyed on the physical civilizations in our galaxy and corrupted them. We've come along as newcomers. Our civilization is very, very young. The modern human has been in existence maybe 150,000 years. That's a drop in the bucket. The Anunnaki, who were the first extraterrestrials here on the planet have a civilization almost 5 billion years old. That's why they're so advanced with their technology and other capabilities. This is true of the reptilians and the Arcturians who made the alien greys. They all have much longer lineages. They were corrupted millions of years ago and have gone downhill as a culture as a consequence of it. So now here we come along. We had our Garden of Eden days where we were communing with God all day long and unfettered, unhindered, uncorrupted, unmodified. And the Anunnaki found us through their travels. And they came in and they wanted to use us as slaves, and they downgraded us genetically to cut down the intuitive reach. And that has trapped us in this kind of low state of being. They're still around and they're still running things.
But the soul skips hops with joy and love to want to just come back into that type of vessel. Consciousness wants to have an experience in that vessel. We're not a victim of that then. We are choosing with free will to come into that experience, into that type of vessel.
Yes, and this seems a bit inexplicable. And this is one of the huge questions through all of time. You know, the source of evil, the reason for evil, and how can evil even exist in a world or in a universe that most hope is based on love, and it truly is. This is a local problem that is a creation in a way inevitable from the possibility of the physical, that you have opposites for everything.
But do you see my point, where the soul, I'm here, I'm the I amness,
Well,
call it the soul, whatever, right? I mean, these are human words, aren't they? And I surely would have had a pen and paper ready before I came here to say, okay, so tick, I know that body's been modified, tick. I know there's going to be loads of limitations, and I know the history of why that vessel that I'm going to be born into and the society is like it is.
right.
I don't come here, the soul's born here, and it's just with all these limitations. I mean,
All right. So the soul makes a decision to come each and every time. It's not obligatory. There are many that have never come into the physical. They're all up in the light and have been since the creation of their soul. The term old souls refers to really humans that were in existence before the physical universe. So we've been lots of other places. Many of us have had incarnations in these other extraterrestrial civilizations. We have karma in common, and that's part of the reason now they're here. We have a mess to clean up, basically, because of the times we became corrupted and did dark things. This is a test for us. This is a challenge and a test for us to see, can we get over the hurdle of negativity, the possibility of evil, and know how to counteract it in a divine way, not throwing more evil at it as we do as humans. That's the human problem right now. We don't think in a divine way. So everyone who comes, every single human being on the planet at the moment chose to come down to help this project. And it is a project. It's a project of learning and growth to overcome now this challenge which has been going on for many thousands of years. And this is the reason, as best I can convey it to you, for why this is going on at all. Why would God let this be? And there's so much misery and suffering when you think about being suppressed and subjugated for thousands of years, and the human follies that happen with regularity, the wars, slavery, huge poverty, the problems of illness and early death and so on, criminality, all these things. The payoff is, if we learn to manage this, we'll grow to such an extent in wisdom, we'll be able to handle anything. and moving on and moving up into higher dimensions and having a much greater reach throughout the universe will prepare us to be leaders, to be teachers, to be healers, and to be stewards of other fledgling worlds, to help give them guidance and support, and be able to handle things when some group of beings gets so off track they start to prey on one another, or an outside group that has less energy, less power. We'll know how to deal with it because we have solved the problem ourselves. That's why we're taking on this challenge, and why we don't just get relief, because that would be the nice thing to do. When you see suffering, you want it to stop. God, come fix this. Help these people, raise them up, bring them food. Help heal their bodies, help them open their hearts to love, so they don't want to hate and prey on their neighbors across the border there and go to war and all of those things. We are supposed to figure this out and manage it on a human level. It is a test for us. Most people, unfortunately, are asleep. We're all cut off when we come. We don't remember where we came from.
I agree with that.
This puts us way, way behind the curve. It's a major dilemma. But it also creates the biggest challenge, because now we have to learn how to be on top of what to do and taking it into action and making it work.
Yeah, and if most of us, from what you're saying, have got some sort of attachment to us that's dragging us down. Not dragging us down, but it causes our growth to be slower in a sense,
yes.
Or it causes us to not accelerate as a soul, to not have the best. I was going to say best life there, but that's not true. Well, but that's almost saying though that we're not in charge, or that we can't create the reality we want until we get rid of something like that.
Well, this is arguable, because the question is, how much power, how much reach do we truly have? We are creative beings. We have divine power to some extent, but we're muted. We are constrained as a physical being at the moment to not have that full divine level of capability. So our reach is very tiny. And this is one of the ways that the channelers have been misled, that you can create or co-create your reality with the universe and everything will be wonderful. Well, you can do some things, but you can't deal with an enemy that is in your face or inside of you and inside of your energy. An extraterrestrial realm that can play with you through mind control and mind manipulation. You'll have no idea it's going on, and manipulate people to do things, control governments, control the environment for the worse, all sorts of things. You can't just use your desire and your wish for a beautiful world and for everyone to make nice and be at peace and change them. That's a divine level problem, and that's what I've been taught. So the rest is a misdirection. It's well-intentioned thinking, but it's going to fall short. So the way Creator put it to me was that when you are under attack by a malevolent extraterrestrial force wanting to annihilate humanity, love thy neighbor will not be enough. They are not going to respond to love. They don't feel love. They're not loving beings. They don't understand even what it is. We do, and that gives us some strength, but we need a divine partnership. So that's my big message, is really bringing in, once again, a divine partnership. We started out with it. We've tended to drift away. The religions got corrupted to war with one another. That turned a lot of people off, rightly so. The religions started darkening and were corrupted with a lot of false information, false teaching. Sorry, it's the way it is. And it made people who intuitively know, no, this is about love. It's not about having power. It's not about, some angry, punishing God is going to condemn people for some minor infraction. Those sorts of things. Those are all untruths. So if people go back to the higher power in a partnership, not as a supplicant, but through the birthright that they are an extension of Creator's consciousness, and Creator wants them to be a partner, to walk hand in hand with them, then that power that we have, that co-creative power, really can kick in a bigger way. If you want to do it all on your own, you can do that. You can make that choice. But that is a deception, because it will rob you of this greater resource. That's the unfortunate thing about this.
When I look at for example, other channel material like The Law of One, I've met Jim McCarthy. He was married to Karl, who channeled that material. Mm-hmm. I don't think they felt it was from a very loving source, and it was for the people that it was going to resonate with. It was going to help them a lot. The same for the Seth material. These people that were in the class at the time when this entity came through would never have felt anything that you've said there. They may have turned around to, if they could hear this, they would probably say, well, that's the reality that Karl's creating.
Yeah, well, I understand. This is part of the deal, you see. I am the odd person out here. I'm fully aware of that.
Could this be the reality you're creating?
Well, look around you. Is the world in balance? Is love reigning? Are people doing things that make sense?
There's people smiling out there and having fun.
I understand, and they're fortunate if they are. I smile a lot myself. I have my dogs. I have a family, and I'm a love-based being, and that's what moves me. I want to help people, and that's what I do with almost all my time. I'm helping people. I'm helping bring in healing for them. That's my main focus. But what it's taught me is this struggle, the discord, is coming from a lot of external influence and manipulation. If you don't face that, you're going to be in the dark, and you won't have answers that solve problems. So I would ask you to look at the channeled material that you revere with a question: how do you use this to help heal people? How is it really going to solve a fundamental problem that they're facing with their life? Someone who can't sleep at night and feels like they're under torment if they close their eyes and go to sleep. Something horrible happens and they have to wake up, and it's destroying their life. You can't give them the law of one and make that go away. I mean, you can try it. People have tried this for years and years.
But the law of one may not be the one that resonates with them. It may be something else they need.
Well, you can try those approaches, and people are. But I have people who have had years and years of using those approaches, and they're still struggling, they're still suffering. And when I look at what's going on subconsciously, there's always reasons, and they're fixable.
What about someone like Edgar Cayce? I've been to the ARE on my journey, mm-hmm. met the director of the ARE, sat behind the 10,000 medical and, 9,000 medical readings, and the other 10,000 were mm-hmm. others. Was he being deceived?
Largely, no. He was channeling useful beings who wanted to help, and especially through healing. So that's why his work was valid for the most part. But he himself had periods of time when something dark got a hold of him and the messages started to get corrupted. And his group worried about that, and they worked with him. If you read the books about him, you'll see that mentioned in there. But that was a minor.
I think you're talking about maybe there was something. There was once where he's channeled some other entity, that predicted a few things that didn't quite happen.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be interesting if you were sat with me and Kevin Tradoshi, which you're not going to be. He may say something a little bit different there. But then is that his blinders that are on? Could be. He may not want to hear what you've got to say.
Channelers will not want to hear what I have to say, I guarantee you, because they believe in what they're doing, and it's very special to them, and it's part of their identity. And I understand it's very seductive and flattering and rewarding to the self to be able to do something extraordinary. I fully get it. The problem I see, though, is the world's in trouble, and we need people who are doing something real and solid that makes a difference. The problem of belief is under management. People are not able to believe. So I had a person call me up just recently who wanted to understand what happened to him because he had had sleep paralysis for years. And he wasn't able to sleep for longer than 40 minutes. It was really ruining his life. And he had tried all kinds of medications. He'd been to doctors. He's done everything he could think of with no real significant relief. He happened to know someone who had been a client of mine who raved about me and said, you should talk to Karl because there's probably something he can do to be helpful here. And he wouldn't do it. He's an engineer, left brain, very, realistic and concrete thinker and so on. Bless him. I understand the scientific perspective. There's no room for this kind of stuff. So he wouldn't go near me, So she hired me just as a friend, as a nice thing. She hired me to do a remote clearing for him with my protocol. And I did. It stopped immediately. His sleep paralysis, it was gone. Over, done. So he finally gave me a call one day, about a year later, and told me what had happened and asked me to help him understand this because still didn't make sense to him why he had this experience. Can you convince me it was what you did? Because I don't buy it. And he offered to come and have, pay for a session and just talk. So I did my best to explain this to him. I brought out many other examples of the healing work, the fact that I have all this information from channeling that fits this picture. I see intuitively these phenomena when I tune into a person. And many times I discovered it myself and then went and asked, what is this? And what do I do about it? And so on. And I put together this protocol that makes sense. It fits lots of information, scientific and otherwise, life description. And I also, because he was a Catholic, I pointed out to him that if you look at what Christ did, a large percentage of his healings were removing dark spirits and demons, they were called, from people. That was a big percentage of the healing work. And not only that, but he taught his disciples to do it. And they went out and worked with people and came back and reported their amazement. They were able to cast out these spirits, these demons. And so it's not being Christ incarnate, one can do this. This is a teachable technique that many can do. And that's what I did for him. He had spirits messing with him.
Is there anything that you might like to add here that you don't think we've added, or you think that would just help just to add this?
Well, this is difficult because there's so many topics.
No, I know.
This is a tough one because this is a very critical period of time. Mm-hmm. And things are going to break. Things are going to get really, really serious, is what I'm being told, what I'm being shown. So there's so many potential agendas here, and it's all inflammatory. It's all negative and so on. But there are answers. So that's the thing I want to come through about the divine as your resource. If you just couple that in with whatever else you do, you know, there's nothing, it's not a big deal. You can just ask, and you'll get some benefits, and
Sure.
what's not to like?
No. I mean, you know, I'm going to maybe, for example, go see Crying Lee Carroll, right? And, you know, if you're in an audience with Lee Carroll, it's going to be bubbling over with love energy from that which is coming out.
Yeah.
And, you know, you just think, well, I leave here, I go to that environment, then I leave here and I go to another, and I leave here and I go to another, all with their own truths, all with their own ideas, with what their groups are bringing through. It all comes down to, what does it feel like for people? What doesn't it? Is it not based on, we have to go with what we feels right? So if someone's watching this and this feels right for them, then that's what they'll probably go with. And if they watch you and they think some parts of what he's saying feels right, but some others, that does not feel right.
Well, this will happen with some. I've also been told by a Creator that when people see me, if they're at all open, Creator will give them a pat on the back and give them a little more encouragement to hear the message. Because there's room for everyone. See, I'm not saying, you know, everyone shut up and go away, stop what you do, you're irrelevant. I'm saying let's do some more. Let's not stop just wanting the big shift. Let's add in some healing for the people who struggle and aren't ready, to raise them to a point where they're going to be more road ready for the ascension. And that will help the cause. That is where we're going. So the message I've gotten from Creator about all this is ascension is the plan. It is the destiny that is intended. But it's the end result of healing. It's not the answer for healing. If we sit around and are complacent, ascension will not happen. Because we're under siege here, there's too much negativity still. In spite of the work of all the channelers and the meditators and the feel-good manifestation promoters and so on. Yeah. No, I know you don't want to hear it. I was disappointed the more I learned about this perspective.
I don't know if I don't want to hear it. Otherwise, I wouldn't be here.
Well, I'm not. I don't mean to.
Yeah. No.
You know, criticize in any way.
No. It's okay. It's okay. Criticize away. No, but I know you don't mean. But I think. Well, let's do a channel. Let's channel, because I think this will answer a lot of questions. I think so. Just if I was just if that you'd be comfortable to do that, and if I was just able to ask a couple of my own questions. Now, channel what? That's the question.
Well, I'm a channel creator.
Well, why don't we do that?
So you get the ultimate perspective that's possible here.
And trust me with that.
Let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah.
You know, I understand who you are and your perspective and what you do, and I really, really respect you for coming and taking the trouble to consider my message in the mix. And just to finish up in your previous question, I think people will take what they want, what they feel is right for them, and people are all in different places. Some people just need some upliftment before they can do anything. And so there's no harm there, and it will be very encouraging, and it brings them back into that kind of perspective. You know, crying is a good example, you know, what Lee Carroll is doing. You know, don't fret, guys, you know, there's great stuff in store here, and we're working on it. But I can also tell you that Lee Carroll doesn't believe in these phenomena. The dark spirits, the ET, involvement here and so on. He doesn't believe it. And so he doesn't ask Kryon about it. Kryon can't discuss it.
It's off limits.
It's off limits. This is what happens. You get what you ask for and very little beyond that. It's answered in the context of who you are in the moment, what you believe to be so, what you're open to, what you're able to handle, what's highest and best for you. There's many considerations. So until the day comes where so many people are hounding him about these kinds of topics that he asked Kryon one day, if he starts to believe it himself, Kryon will be forthcoming and start to open up about it. And then he'll have to go back for more, because it'll be little by little. That's my prediction. It might not happen. He might stay in his current mode till he drops.
That's really strange you say that, because Cass, the lady that brought this other Seth member through, the difference in her message compared to the original member that was working with Jane, because of the alignment with their energy, she was saying stuff like, we're under, we're not in, there is an outside forces that's working against us to progress and all this, right? And me and Barry Giles, one of the Seth members, watched this together. Yeah, I mean, it was the first time I watched it since I recorded it with Cass, and he felt that's not the original Seth would never have said. The member Seth would never said that, but it was exactly what you were saying, because he also said as well, there's things I'm off limits talking about right now because Cass will not allow me to talk about them because it affects her belief system.
Mm-hmm.
Everything,
Absolutely.
yeah. But then why? But that the information of this control was never mentioned with Jane Roberts. Now the funny thing is, when I first started channeling, and I was bringing my book out, which has still not been released yet. Just lost my editor for it, but that's all good. That's all good. No, it's all good. It's all meant to be. And I brought out what came through me was that what David Art was talking about. There's something that there was a force keeping us down, but we were not going to talk about it yet. And I was so glad when it said that, because I was like, that load of rubbish, right? When I was bringing that through for myself. So when you're saying these things, I've heard them come through myself. I didn't want to know about it at the time. Mm-hmm. Mine became a bit of a love bomb book, right? But it did say those few little things. I resisted it. I said, no, we're not talking about that.
Well, you see, this, if Creator wanted everybody to know this, it wouldn't be hard. Creator could just put it in your mind, put it on billboards, write it in the sky in letters. That's not the intention here. The intention is for us to figure out our dilemmas and learn what's really going on and find the answers. That's what makes it so hard.
Well,
and now on the human level, it's human versus human, and we know not to trust everyone.
But the way you're saying it, and what the discussion we're having right now, is kind of making a little sense.
Okay.
I think it is.
Well, there is a logic to this, and a process, and an energy, and rules of engagement, and so on. So let me mention a couple of things. When I, as a hypnotist, and having heard about this guy doing the spirit releasement stuff, I was in the acquaintance of a young channeler who channeled an archangel, and so I did a channeling session with her, and I asked the archangel, what about these dark spirits? How many are there? Where are they from? What are they doing? And so on. And you know what I was told? It is best to not focus too much on the darkness. I wasn't ready. They won't just start and dump all this stuff out in front of a person. I wasn't quite ready yet to buy it. I wasn't ready to use the information in a wise way that would be good for me. So they were not able to go any further. So they didn't say, oh, that's a false notion. There's no such thing. They said it's best not to probe too much into the darkness. I wasn't ready to be safe was part of it. They didn't tell me that either. Why bring fear to me? You see, this is how careful they are. They're very, very careful.
Had I not had the experience with Cass I had in the past few days, I would find resistance with what you're saying right now. I think that's why I keep bringing her up and that experience and how synchronous it was.
All right. There's a difference between a true divine source with all those rules we're talking about right now. You know, they can't overstep their boundaries to let you be in the lead, to be in charge, have your beliefs. You can be a non-believer. They will not challenge that. So that's why if someone who goes to get a reading won't be very impressed, because the beings may not cooperate, because it would conflict with their disbelief. They're allowed to be non-believers. If the whole thing can fail. So diehard skeptics will have trouble going and getting useful information from a divine being. Now, we have the sources that corrupt, the sources that are pretending to be divine beings in many cases, who channelers connect to and get information from. That's entirely different, because they'll be told mostly what they want to hear, regardless. There will be some limits. It will not be useful, actionable information other than sweetness and light, wishful thinking support. They won't tell you much beyond that. So there'll be, but if that's all you're thinking you're going to get, you'll be quite happy. So this is the problem. And some of them will even acknowledge the dark end of things, because they know you believe it already. They're going to keep you happy by keeping you convinced they're a real voice. But there'll be limits on what they'll tell you about, like what you can do about that and what's coming and so on. This is Source Creator speaking.
Karl's work talks about that probably a high percentage of channelers are not channeling what they believe or perceive they're channeling. Is that your truth?
Indeed, this is the case. He has learned this first from the archangels and then as well from me. And this has been his experience again and again, turning to our source of information, asking about individuals, that again and again he goes away disappointed because we cannot stand behind what they are doing. There are a very few, who are reaching their targets of intention accurately and without restriction. The rest are falling short. And this is for a variety of reasons: lack of preparation, lack of awareness of the possibilities of interception, not asking for safety and protection, not being in divine alignment, having inner doubts and fears, on and on. Many reasons can result in someone not achieving their intended goal. They may also not be supported in that fashion by divine realm, because it is not highest and best for them in some way. They are not ready, or might use the information unwisely, and so we will simply not talk with them. This is not meant to harm, this is meant to protect. And this is always our goal in working with everyone. This situation is not one of our liking. This is a consequence of the dilemma of human in being separated from the divine at the outset with their very birth into physical form. They are coming into an incomplete and defective vessel. The human has been modified to restrict the intuitive gateway. And this is why so very few can reach out intuitively and perceive things. And it is therefore a rare talent. This is present in all people to some degree, but much less strikingly. And so the channeler can put on an amazing display of intuitive ability to have an actual back and forth discussion or communication, or be a gateway for unfiltered dialogue. This, however, does not mean that the voice is a high-level being. And this is the first mistake most make. Most are naive, thinking they are reaching their archangel or ascended master, or even their own higher self. But an imposter has stepped in to engage with them. And once that is allowed, it will likely recur. As the partnership continues, the person channeling is more and more reinforced and rewarded with information. They will become very complacent and will, in the bargain, be manipulated further through an inner mind control intrusion. The imposters involved can be dark spirits, but they are mostly extraterrestrial psychics. They are scanning and on watch constantly for the intuitives. It is those who are intuitive who are escaping the subjugation that is plaguing everyone else. They are able to see above the fog, and this makes them dangerous. They are constrained and approached in this way in order to keep them sidelined so they cannot be a threat. In seeing further into the workings of the darkness, they must be held back and kept at bay. This is true of those exploring the workings of the extraterrestrials as well. They have an intuitive awareness and are largely uncorrupted because this is the evidence. Those interested in the paranormal and in the extraterrestrials are escaping the mind control subjugation for the most part. This is not to say they cannot flirt with the dark through a channeling exercise, for example. And then there are those who come forward as whistleblowers who are already subjugated and programmed and will be manipulated to bring forth all kinds of stories of extraterrestrial doings, potential positive collaborations, extraterrestrial saviors, betterment of humanity, and on, all of which is a deception. This is what you are facing in the world right now. And your exercise is very much supporting that component of disinformation. It is unavoidable. And so we do not mean to criticize or be harsh here. This is not a judgment. This is simply an honest answer to an honest question. You are desiring to probe this and do wish to hear our words. And we understand the reserve you have because of your extensive experience working in this arena. This is true for your channeler here as well. He has come by this knowledge with great difficulty, with personal sacrifice, and having some wounding along the way as well. So he speaks with sincerity about the pitfalls here. It is very, very real. This is the current world and the current state of affairs, and is the compelling reason and one line of evidence that humans need to be more aware, to be shaken from their complacency and elevated once again to consider the divine and their own origins. After all, you all come from us. It is who you are. You deserve to be within our family and deserve to be a part of our plan and creation, with the intention for the divine human to move forward with a glorious expansion throughout the universe. There are many future roles for each and every human being, far beyond what they can do as physical human. This is your kindergarten, so to speak, where you are learning the ropes, learning how to navigate, learning the ins and outs of the art of living. It will serve you greatly in the future if you survive this period. It is a test of you. It is a challenge of you. It is possible to fail here. We are not mincing words because there is no time to be gentle. This has been the case for centuries now, that things are slowly evolving with the shift in consciousness that is planned. At this point, time is growing very, very short. If more does not happen in the awakening and a realignment, so people choose to have a divine partnership, they will be on their own. And if they choose to partner with the extraterrestrials, it will be their undoing.
But why has the extraterrestrials got that type of agenda for? Where is that coming from them to want to do that? I mean, surely if you're technologically advanced, you're also spiritually advanced as well.
This is a misconception, and it is quite understandable, but it is a purposeful misconception that has been impulsed telepathically to your culture for decades and decades and decades to create this very assumption. It is natural to think that as you evolve, as you grow and learn, that you will also learn from your mistakes. And when you learn to master things, then you are more effective. You can do so in a safe way. You can grow, and you can, through the power of your technology, provide for the lack that brings strife when one has to prey on another to take their food, to take their clothing, and so on. Technology has its value, but it is a temporary solution to the dilemma of being in the physical, and that is all it is. It is not a goal. It is not an answer. It is not a salvation or a savior. It is a false god because it adds to a state of complacency. Thinking that you have cell phones does not mean you will not go to war at a moment's notice if someone insults you or your leader, or invades in some way the territory of an ally, even minimally, or an act of terrorism that is attributed to a geographic location or a cultural group or religious group or faction. This seems to you to be cause for retribution. There is nothing in that technology that will stop you. If anything, it will make it more likely that you will use negativity to fuller personal advantage, to gain power and control. So now you have weapons from the skies guided by the global positioning system with pinpoint accuracy. That technology, which is amazing and formidable in its reach, does nothing to spread the idea of the spiritual. It is simply technology. So this is true of everything in physical existence. It can be used for good or for ill. When you set about life, you make an endless series of choices. The beings we are discussing who are in your realm and are controlling you for the most part have become corrupted. In spite of their technology, they are spiritually corrupt. They have turned away from the divine long, long ago. And with that, they surrendered their moral center, their moral core. They have become like the dark spirit corruptors who started this process of corruption. They are self-serving and have an inability to feel compassion. They are loveless beings at this point because those dark spirits are loveless, and they have become more and more a match to this dark inner influence. They are heavily infested with internal naysayers who want to see others harmed because it brings torment and suffering, and they use that energy for personal gain. These extraterrestrials are only looking out for themselves. They are conquering other worlds because they can. It is no different than what humans have done all through recorded history, moving about in sailing vessels, for instance, invading other lands, killing, pillaging, taking home natural resources, precious metals to reward the kings and the dynasties, and occupying territories, spreading their own culture, belief, and power as overlords. The colonial eras and so on are exactly analogous to what the current extraterrestrials are doing. The ones who are here in physical form are not your friends. They are opponents. They have designs on your planet, and they will be happy when you are gone altogether. This is their current plan.
So how have they infiltrated us, though? How are they pushing that plan and agenda forward? Because I'm sure, if I was to rubbing shoulders with one of my friends right now that's not here, he would not have that thought in his reality that that's going on.
First of all, there is the inner corruption by dark spirits who now are commandeered and controlled by the extraterrestrials as well to target individuals purposely. In addition, there is a wholesale, widespread, 24-hour-a-day bombardment of all human beings with mind control, manipulation, subjugation, and programming at all levels about many subjects. People are not allowed to think for themselves to a great extent because parts of their mind are increasingly walled off through cultivation of inner beliefs and inner disbeliefs. This is why so few believe in the paranormal, despite the many years of abundant evidence accumulating and the many forays into the media of psychics and even channelers. The disbelief in extraterrestrials parallels this as well. People simply dismiss the idea of extraterrestrials. Anyone who promotes the idea is considered to have a tinfoil hat, quote unquote, to be a hoaxer or to be mentally unbalanced. So the conspiracy theorists, a term coined by the American intelligence services to discredit people who actually know the truth, all serves to keep this under wraps as they go about their business. People are herded into little groupings like sheep, penned in by their limiting beliefs, thinking they are doing what is called on them to do in their lives and not looking beyond those narrow borders. they are manipulated into thinking what they think. Other thoughts are disallowed. This again is why those with intuitive reach who will explore these off-limits subjects are still a potential threat. So the irony is those who are maligned by society as nuts, as deranged, are the ones who see reality and see the truth of things. There is often truth in what is said by the insane. They are often highly intuitive and know much about what is tormenting them. And when they hear inner voices and have delusional thoughts, it is coming from another consciousness within. And they often perceive this. And all of it is considered part of their disorder, but may in fact be a rather accurate representation of the fact they are under siege. People are herded into complacency. It is like a narcotic, a fog that has descended on humanity. The other strategies are divide and conquer, getting warring factions going, turning political party against the opposite political party, turning a religion against another religion, turning the nations of one country against the nations of another, an ideology of one against the ideology of another, on and on. What this does very cleverly is to give the illusion of freedom, the illusion that you have a total free will and free agency to do and be what you choose.
But did the soul know that before it came down here?
You, as well as anyone hearing these words, chose to be here. And you came to fight this contest, to discover the truth of things, to find the solutions, and to raise up humanity yourselves, because no one else will do it. The forces you look to, your human compatriots wanting to save the world through meditation, through manifesting, to reaching out to infinite awareness, which is not defined as anything other than a concept, will fall short, because you have real problems, real opposition with powerful energy behind it. This is the energy of consciousness they share with you, but unhindered. They are not limited in their reach. They are only blind to the reality of the divine. This has weakened them, but they have all their other powers intact. And this makes them dangerous. It makes them a formidable foe. You can prevail over them by partnering with the divine. It will not happen any other way. The multiple sources of information and knowledge to the contrary are all deceptions. They are propaganda cultivated through many voices. And the channelers will increasingly be contributing to this discussion. That is an orchestration. It is not that they share the truth and are giving similar messages because they are all tapped into a higher plane, a higher source of knowledge and wisdom. They are tapping into a corrupt imposter message and dispensing it each in their own way. And it will be a formidable display of unanimity that will be quite persuasive. These are all tricks. When people are fighting with one another, it looks like this is the limitation of human, and you are being cultivated to not believe in yourselves. Look at the world and how much it is in disarray on the practical level. Not the people who want something better and have lofty thoughts and ideas. They are on the right track, and they should reach for higher thoughts, for dreams of love and its expression. This is the purpose of existence. But to surrender to those controlling you for dark reasons undercuts it entirely and puts the entire enterprise at risk. You came down to serve the cause of the light. No one comes here who is not willing to go into that battle. If you come down and are subjugated, become complacent, serve an ordinary life, completely unaware of the ongoing challenge and the ultimate goal that the divine wishes to see, you will incur the slings and arrows of life, and you will leave unfulfilled, having failed your mission, and likely having incurred additional karmic damage to you by being roughed up by life, bullied as a child, disappointed in a career where you were sidelined, laid off, had some other calamity or limitation imposed by the problems of society, the large debt, global tensions, the problems of war, the difficulties dealing with troublemakers, the criminal element, on and on and on. Everything that you do here that does not serve the light in a way works against you karmically, because you came down with a lofty ideal, and if you are corrupted and misdirected, you not only will fail your mission, you will be serving the darkness to some extent as well. And that will be an additional burden for you. By far the greatest burden falls on the corruptors, the interlopers, those dark spirits and the extraterrestrial communities and civilizations who are controlling things on every level. This goes far beyond what most people would ever dream, because they corrupt everything. And this is why, if you look carefully with dispassion, with objectivity as best you can, every institution is faulty. Every institution falls short of its stated goals. All are corrupt in many, many ways on many levels, with false teachings, with limited ideas, limited concepts, built-in inefficiencies, working at cross purpose, and then in conflict with one another as well. And so the competing ideas of politics and culture conspire as well to create causes worth defending, and then people will. The end result is all lose from the discord and the inefficiency. This is all planned. It is all orchestrated. We cannot overestimate the reach and overemphasize the consequences of mind control manipulation. It is being beamed to you through all electronic devices in existence now, through the cell phones, through the media, radio, television, motion pictures, even musical recordings have electromagnetic information that is dispensed along with your pleasurable experience. It is going into your subconscious level that is not in your conscious awareness, but it is cultivating your inner beliefs, adding to your complacency, or riling you up to serve a false flag in some way, to line up behind a cause, to go and demonstrate, or if so inclined through karmic history, pick up a weapon and cause an act of violence. These are all manipulations done each and every day by the darkness.
So, you call, what would you, how would you term yourself to me again? What do you call yourself that's coming through Karl right now? If you had a name, what would your name be? Your source?
I am the source of all that is. I am the creator of worlds, the creator of the universe, you know, everything within it, all organisms, all life forms, all forms of energy, the particulate matter, as you describe it, is all an extension of my consciousness and awareness and desire for an expansion of experience, and to explore the possibilities in extending more broadly and allowing extensions of my consciousness to do so likewise. This is the overall overarching structure of everything, that there are layers, many, many layers of consciousness and local control. So I am the God of your world, the God of your universe, and known by all of those terms. The Holy Father, the Allah, and so on. This is whom you speak with. This is why the information is coming in the way that it is. It fits with the perspective we have laid out for you, why this is so. It could not be otherwise if you are asking about the broad canvas of life and everything in it. We must speak the truth if you are open to hear it. You are open enough to hear these words. And one of the reasons for us being so forthright and so alarmingly negative to most ears is that time is growing short to tip the balance in the other direction. There is a contest going on here each and every day. Humanity is either progressing or it is falling back and being further suppressed. The gains you make in your thoughts with your hopes and dreams are your doing. They will not influence the darkness. It is not a sufficient force to bring to bear, and is not something that will become a motivation for them. They look on you as weaklings, and indeed, in most respects, you are in your physicality. It is not who you are in actuality. These beings do not believe in the divine, and they have no such resources available to them. This can be your answer and the way you will be successful with the future of humanity if you can return to divine principles. This does not require combat. It is not about war. It is not about risking one's life. It is about being open to divine love, requesting that it be bestowed on everyone, including all who might work against you. This is the ultimate answer to bring love back in. It is what these dark beings need more than anything else. They need healing. You can be the healers. If you request this to happen, you can heal your way to the ascension and the enlightenment that you yearn for. But there is healing work to be done before that can take place.
But how do I know that this is source and this is truth, that this is not deception, in a sense? Would it be just the answer is, well, how does it feel for you when you're listening to it?
That is partly the answer, but of course your inner feelings are modulated by many influences as well. Your subconscious level is testing the waters each and every moment, scanning everything you perceive with your senses and drawing a conclusion. It is not always a reliable indicator, particularly if the knowledge within is limited.
Okay. So some people watching this now may think that is completely out of alignment with what love is. That is the opposite of love, what we're talking about here right now, in a sense. That there's forces above us, that we've been controlled for a long, long time, that we're heading in a negative direction. Some watching this will think that is not my reality. That's whatever's coming through now. If that's source, that is not my reality or source.
Well, that may be an opinion. It may be a conclusion you've come to through careful cultivation of your beliefs. People can be cultivated and manipulated to believe in almost anything. This is why people march off to war, even though killing is not divine. and all pay a price, regardless of who wins in a human perspective. People do this nonetheless. So we would say, if you look at what is happening in many areas of the world, even locally, where there are injuries, discord, pain, suffering, illness, death, if you come across a group of boys who've tied up a dog and are throwing stones at it, this does not mean love does not exist. If you see this and you choose to call the authorities to come in and corral those boys because you don't want rocks thrown at you, you are not turning away from love in doing that. You're taking care of business. You're taking care of a problem. What we are saying is love is real. Love is the ultimate expression of reality. It is the ultimate of divine expression. But there are pockets where love is absent. This is true in your world to a significant degree. And it is being increased and fostered by the interlopers among you. And it is because they are loveless. That is the reason you have this problem. It is not humans are faulty. Humans are divine and will act in a divine way, left alone and to their own devices. The world was this way in the past. It is the darkness that's crept in, the absence of love that turned people to darkness. And it can manipulate the humans to act accordingly. And this is because of the relative disconnection.
So in percentage-wise, again, answering this question briefly, you're probably aware of some of the channels that I've been to see. Yeah, it's getting on to 70 almost, right? Not quite, but it's going to be, by the time that I've left the US, it will be. You know, what percentage of them is really you that's coming through in a sense? No, they channel different types of things. They channel groups. So, you know, are all these groups, are they not the groups they think they're channeling? Are they so deceived they're not even channeling a group? It's something quite different to even a group.
This is very easy to arrange by the extraterrestrial psychics. They can connect with anyone, anywhere, anytime, groups of people all at once. They can channel people simultaneously. This is what they do with their mind control manipulation. They don't have 8 billion psychics, each talking to an individual human. They talk with many people at once. This is well within their ability to handle. And they can carry on multiple conversations, multiple messages that come through. So this is child's play for them.
So in your truth, does a group called the Seth group exist?
The group exists, but it is not the group you imagine.
Well, I know that from speaking to her. Or what do you mean?
This is what we mean, that this is not the original truth of the messages that have been brought forth previously. This is a continuation of training and knowledge and information that has a limited reach. Those who believe in it and tag on are often connecting with imposters. Okay. When you hear one who can question things, that is more likely to be true. But even there, this will be a tool used against those who are genuine. So you will end up back where you started. Yes. With he said, she said disagreements, and then you will be on your own once more to make a discerning judgment.
Well, yesterday I was with Barry Giles, one of the Seth class members, and he said everything fitted in what she said until the bit where she starts talking about that there's an agenda above us, that there's something that's been controlling us, that we've been manipulated and we've been wiped off before. The old ancestry lines of the human being. Anyway, that there were, okay. Let's summarize it like this. There were some things that were said there that you're saying that put people or original Seth members off because Seth talked about a universe that was safe and loving. You're not talking about that.
That was a false teaching.
Why?
That was a deception, because the universe contains within it your galaxy, and your local region has been influenced to the negative by the forces you know of and have been discussing here today. This corruption is influencing everything in it and is a major issue and learning opportunity as well. It is a challenge to be overcome. It is not the way the universe works as a whole. It is an example of an extreme consequence of the possibility of the negative taking charge. This has been the problem. A drift from the center line of divine progression, and then increasingly so to tilt towards the negative to the extent it spreads and infects others. This is the force that needs to be reckoned with. The original Seth teachings were not divine in nature. They were not in divine alignment. They were in some respects, but in some respects not. This is one example where there was a deception.
Who blocked that? Who brought that deception? Who allowed that deception? Was that Jane Roberts?
She allowed it by channeling without proper safety. She was not thinking about this possibility and was not enough in alignment herself that would be taken care of. This is a common problem and is very frustrating for everyone in this arena who encounters this opposite argument. This is most unfortunate and is of great unhappiness for your channel at the moment as well. He is recoiling from the tenor of this discussion because he was hoping to get through this interview without going quite to these extremes of revealing these inner workings. But it is the way it has come forth, and this is an answer to your quest. So you will hear the truth, and as you probe, we will fill in more for you. So the true source of the Seth material is the Anunnaki extraterrestrials. It is Anunnaki extraterrestrial psychics who were the being Seth. This is true of most such beings with a name.
But then who's coming through Cayce then, calling itself the group Seth?
This is the Anunnaki.
Well, they seem pretty wise and loving to me.
They know the lingo, they know the language, they know how we think and how we feel as humans, and the love within the divine as exemplified and illustrated in human yearnings, the human impulse to be charitable, to be kind, to reach out and want love in return. They have learned this quite well, and they can interact with humans in a way to satisfy this need. This makes their job very, very simple. All they need to do is come down, give some messages of upliftment with a sugar coating, and people will go away thrilled and happy. So there is nothing wrong with that, except that out and back, there's a group of young teenagers throwing stones at a dog and torment. There is work to be done here. There are many suffering and being killed needlessly. And the advancement of the light is not happening in the way people suppose.
But if that was the Anunnaki coming through through Cayce, then why is it saying what you're saying then?
This was us stepping in and inserting our words. This is what we were...
Oh, that's what you meant.
Indeed. We made a special exception for you to have that experience so that it would be on your mind, so that you would bring it up here in this session and hear this explanation.
Well, that's kind of weird you say that, because I watched it back for the first time yesterday with Barry Giles, and when that part came on where it changed, where I didn't say that Barry should change, but when they brought this information that you're bringing through, I thought, hang on a minute, that's like something else coming through there, but I never said that to Barry.
You were impulsed with that awareness intuitively. This is your reach, that you were wanting truth, and you got a truthful answer and perspective personally. It was your truth detector in action. You were seeing that for what it truly was. And that is why we are having this discussion. You are unusual because you are still open-minded and willing to consider alternatives. It's not to your liking many times to think the imbalance here is what we are saying. But nonetheless, you are willing to hear the message at least. So we are answering in kind. And we are using the opportunity, quite frankly, to go full bore, so to speak, because this is a rare opportunity to bring forward this perspective.
But then where does that leave me with my perspective on this documentary then? I can't just see you as one of the last few channels on this journey and say, right, now I've seen Karl and I've spoke to Source, that was Source, and now it's changed my mind on everything. You can understand that, can't you, what I'm saying?
I understand quite fully. And your channel is feeling the exact same thought and inserted the I word on his own because he was regretting this interview for precisely this reason, knowing that you have this project you are devoting yourself diligently to and lovingly to, with great excitement. And it is important because the phenomena are amazing, and this is a kind of miracle in action. The reach of non-local consciousness is profound, and it is an important lesson for the world. So it has great value. Yes. But we appreciate as well that to hear you may be in support of something with a dark agenda associated with it is not what you bargained for. And we don't like this either. We are watching the entirety of humanity in a downward spiral. We are keeping it afloat here and there as we can to help maintain more of a level playing field, to give you a fighting chance. If you fail and humanity fails, humanity will go down. Humanity will be destroyed, and the entire enterprise will have to be restarted from scratch. You will be back fighting oppressors again for many, many, many centuries in an entire new creation. Having come this far, there is so much at stake in going the distance that we are doing our best to serve you with this higher awareness, as difficult and unpleasant as it is. So this is the unfortunate reality of things that you are hearing from us, that most of the individuals you will encounter are being minded. They are being fed information by handlers who are imposters. It all sounds good. It all fits together. Yes. And if you were to ask them this question about your channel by name, they would, to a person, tell you, I am corrupt. Yes, I am a dark messenger who is trying to derail the shift in consciousness by dragging everyone down and disheartening them and discouraging them and giving them false messages to give up their wonderful spiritual activities, which are working just fine and are sorely needed to raise up the world. This is now in your lap and is your creation through your own doing, your own curiosity. And as much as we would like to make nice and avoid the clash of viewpoints, we cannot do so and be true to the inner desire for growth and learning. And not to mention the importance to humanity that the truth comes forward.
Okay. Let me ask you one final question, because we're literally out of time right now, and I thank you for what you've said and everything. I really do. I don't know what this is coming through right now, Karl, right? I mean, how would I know if I met Source? I mean, I thought I met it before. I thought I met Source once through Neil Donald Walsh, but I think I made it through myself something. We are all God, aren't we? But is this God? I'm going to say this is something very wise, but that's for sure. And I don't mean any disrespect when I say this. I'm on my own path just right now with the things that you're telling me. But just fast forwarding, I'm off to go see this guy called Corey Good. You know, it's Corey's world of truth, and no one else can prove it. What is, if this is Source? What is your take on Corey Good?
Unfortunately, he is being completely managed through mind control subjugation to promote a false agenda of the Extraterrestrial Alliance, to promote the idea that there are friendly extraterrestrials here to help, who will help humanity, who will share their technology, share their wisdom, and of course, after all, being so advanced, they have outgrown the need for war and strife and are exalted beings. And of course, by the way, there are these pesky reptilians who are negative extraterrestrials, and they are in your midst as well. And you need the good extraterrestrials to counter the evil ones. You cannot do this on your own. The technology is far beyond yours. We've been working with the government on this project. Many have come forward already describing their efforts on that front. And this is now the culmination to come forward and reveal this, to disclose it to the world so all can get behind this. This is a completely false agenda. This is a Trojan horse designed to dupe people into accepting the outreach from the purported benevolent extraterrestrials who are working against you and will annihilate you in the end if you let this happen. This is the severity of what you face. If you think about his message, there is nothing about God here. It is about love, he will say. This is the currency. This is the sugar coating. But you must ask the question, why is there a program like this, totally in secret, where not only is it a secret, but people have their mind wiped of the memories of what they have done in this program? Why are there many suffering now because of their experiences in the program? This is one of the penetrating questions. There will be answers if you ask. There will be answers, and they will seem persuasive because they will fit within your reality. You must always look deeper. The reality is these beings who come forward as the so-called Nordics, the ones who look very human-like and may be very beautiful in their physical appearance, and with the right demeanor and sensitivity and messages of love, they are manipulators. They create a love feeling within the humans present, and the humans will think they are receiving love when it is not the case. The love is being created within them through a technological means. They're pushing your love button for you. And like a puppy dog where you scratch its belly, will just roll over and let you do more. This is part of the subterfuge. So the entire enterprise is designed to make people complacent. The secret space program is a false nomer. It is a mercenary army program. They are training millions of human beings to be warriors, giving them the message they are serving their country, they are serving the planet to protect them from dangers of outer space, the reptilians by name. They are being trained and groomed to be totally manipulable and able to be turned on a dime and attack humanity. The demise of humans will come at the hands of humans and human clones. These are being produced in huge numbers now as a clone army that will do the mop-up operation to remove humans, other than some subjects of scientific interest to the alien greys who will be taken against their will, at least the will of their soul, and sequestered. The rest may be annihilated. This is a possibility. It is not what will happen with certainty.
Okay. Well, thank you for that. Thank you. And thank you for coming through, Cass, when you did as well. That's very interesting, that bit of information there. I would just like to send you love and light from myself, and just I'm sure there'll be another communication in some form. I just appreciate you coming through, Karl, and Karl letting you do that. So thank you.